Eulogy is the episode that I've been looking forward to most from Black Mirror Season 7, and even with the extremely high expectations that I had for it, Charlie Brooker managed to exceed them by hitting me in a way that I really didn't expect. This was a real emotional ride, and I'd probably compare it to feeling the way that I did whilst watching the likes of The Entire History of You and Be Right Back. Real emotional ones that pull on your heartstrings due to there being some kind of empathetic grasp. With Phillip finding out that Carol, somebody that he was deeply in love with when he was younger, had now passed away, we saw him enter a place in his mind that he tried to forget. But by visiting the past, he realized that over a decade's worth of pain and the perception that he had of somebody that he once cared about in thinking that they were a bad person was a lifetime of anger and resentment that was wasted. Honestly, this was such a powerful episode and I can't wait to talk about it. So let's get into it. Here is a review of Black Mirror Eulogy and the ending explained. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. The deeper meaning of the episode. I feel like there was a real key takeaway and deeper meaning in this episode, and it felt like it was about how in life, the way that we perceive people and events can be different, and not as straightforward as they seem. And once faced with a different version of events, a version and perspective that you didn't once know, you could realize that you've wasted time, energy and emotions, and part of a life feeling things that you probably never needed to feel. And just like in Philip's situation, by the end, it was too late to rectify because the person that he once vilified was gone. Philip spent a lot of his life trying to forget about somebody that he once cared for, all because of the way that he perceived the events that unfolded when he went to London to visit Carol when he was younger. That and the fact that he didn't notice the letter that was on the floor. He spent over a decade trying to climb out of a pit that he was in mentally after feeling abandoned by Carol, and he destroyed every photo that he ever had of her in the process. However, following her death, he now wanted to find a way of remembering her through the use of the technology called Eulogy, but because all of the photos were destroyed, it was difficult for him to do. It was almost like a harsh reality of life. What we were exposed to inside of his mind was his version of the story of their relationship and the events that unfolded, and how he perceived her to be the villain of the story, such as her moving to London, her being jealous of Emma, her blaming him for not landing the job that she wanted in the orchestra, and also by walking out of the restaurant when he proposed to her. However, whilst stepping through time with these photos and reliving the memories, with the help of the guide, which we found out was a generated version of Carol's daughter Kelly, we saw him seeing the story of their relationship from Carol's perspective. For example, how he didn't allow her to play the cello in the band, how he cheated on her with Emma, which justified her right to be suspicious, and also how he never really listened to her when it came to things that were important. Such as on the engagement night where he was drunk after a bottle of champagne when she wanted to open up to him about the fact that she was pregnant with somebody else's child, but she just simply couldn't. With the reveal at the end of the episode being focused around a note that was in a photo that he never knew that he had, and it being a note which confessed to him that she was pregnant following a one-night stand and that she walked out because she didn't know how to tell him, not because she wanted to abandon him, and also that if he wanted to see her again then he should meet her the following day. With him not seeing the note, the hatred that he had for her and feeling like she abandoned him was something that never needed to be felt. The note just didn't get seen by him because he smashed up the room. This note that he had from her changed everything in his mind about the way that he viewed her. Through entering the environment in the photos, he went on a journey of the relationship that he was once in, and he was exposed to it in a completely different way than he'd ever been before. He was in love with Carol when he was younger. He grew to hate her because of the way that he thought she treated him. And with him going on this journey through time with the photos and gaining clarity, it was like he fell in love with her all over again. No longer was she the villain in his story, but he saw her as human, and I think he took on part of the responsibility for what happened in the relationship as well. The sad reality is that their paths were never destined to cross again, even though Carol didn't choose to walk away. The ultimatum that she wrote was just never received, and he never knew the truth back then, which is just heartbreaking. It was an episode that had a somewhat uplifting ending because Philip changed his view of Carol, but also at the same time it was just so sad. It just showed how paths in life can change and that they both existed at the same time whilst having two completely different perceptions of each other. She never knew that she was the villain in his story, not to the extent that she was anyway. With Philip digging out the tape recording of the cello piece that she composed and recorded, we saw him re-enter the photo of him looking at Carol playing it, and he finally got to see her face because he now remembered. By reading that note, hearing the music, and seeing the truth about what actually happened on the night that she walked out, it was as if the clouds parted ways in his mind and the negativity lifted and allowed him to remember what she looked like. Once the love re-entered, he could remember. Honestly, it was such an emotional ending. With it being combined with him actually being at the funeral in London and him witnessing Kelly, Carol's daughter, playing the piece, it showed that he cared for Carol and wanted to pay his respects, as she was no longer just this person in his life that caused him pain. Black Mirror endings are usually sad and bleak, and whilst it did have a somewhat happy ending, I think the bleakness came from the fact that Phillip wasn't able to change the past or even see the person that he wrongfully viewed as a bad person, and that was something that he couldn't change. My review of the episode. I thought this was such a beautiful episode. It tackled a topic that I think many people can relate to. Death, love, heartbreak, the process of moving on and feeling as if you've wasted time. What I thought was so heartbreaking about it was the fact that their stories were destined to go the way that they were, but it didn't need to go the way that it did. That's what made it so painful. I liked the way that it shone a light on how different people can have different perceptions of people when they depart relationships and think that the other person was the one that was in the wrong when they didn't truly know the full story. Phillip had sat on that anger for his entire life, viewed Carol as the bad person and never took responsibility for the way that things ended and how they were during the relationship. And with him finally seeing the truth at the end, that waste of anger and energy was something that was really felt. When it came to the twist of the guide being revealed to be a generated version of Carol's daughter Kelly, I thought that was smart. At first, I thought it was actually going to be Carol, so I was wrong with that, but I definitely felt like there was more than what met the eye with the guide. When it came to the technology, I thought it was such a cool piece of tech, one of Black Mirror's most interesting pieces, and it felt like a piece that you'd see in an early episode. The idea of being able to enter your memories through the prompting of pictures feels similar in approach to the entire history of you, but this spin was really interesting. Also, how haunting was it with everybody at the funeral just looking completely out of it with the guide disc on. This was the most intimate episode of Black Mirror that we've had in absolutely ages, and Paul Giamatti delivered. He was the perfect casting for the episode and you felt the range of emotions that he had. What started as somebody not wanting to re-enter the past transformed into somebody enjoying reliving parts of it, to then being confronted with the pain that he chose to forget, to then seeing a new perspective and feeling that love for a person that he stopped having those feelings for. The score is definitely something that has to be spoken about in this episode. It really captured the tone and mood, and there were these somber pieces that had so much space within them. It was almost a dreamscape sound in the sense that it felt like it represented a journey through the mind and the past. It was probably my favourite score out of the 5 episodes of this season so far. In terms of where this episode ranks in Season 7, I expected it to be my favourite before going into it, and I think it is. It sits just above Common People, which means everything else moves down a mark. I knew from the trailer this one would be an emotional ride, and I'm glad it delivered. It was a true original Black Mirror episode that was intimate, had incredible performances, and was relatable. It gets full marks from me. So, there you have it, a review of Black Mirror Eulogy and the ending explained. If you want to see every episode of Black Mirror ranked, then I've put the video below. I'm breaking down every episode of Season 7 as well, so I've put the playlist there too. What did you think of this episode? Share your thoughts in the comments. As always, thanks for tuning into the video and I'll see you in the next one.